The security footage had been playing for exactly 23 seconds when soccer mom Karen's smug smile completely vanished from her face. Judge Judy had just exposed the most brazen lie ever caught on camera in courtroom history, and what happened in the next 67 seconds would turn this entitled suburban mom from confident victor into a sobbing mess begging for mercy on national television. Karen Morrison had walked into that courtroom literally bragging to the cameras about how she had already won, clutching a folder full of fake evidence, and wearing her most expensive designer suit-like armor against accountability. She had no idea that Judge Judy had obtained the one piece of evidence that would destroy her entire life in front of 8.4 million viewers. What makes this story absolutely insane is that Karen didn't just lose her case. She didn't just get embarrassed. What Judge Judy did to her was so devastatingly brutal, so perfectly orchestrated, that it ended Karen's entire social standing, triggered a criminal investigation, and made her the most hated soccer mom in America overnight. Before I show you the exact moment when that security footage played and Karen's face transformed from arrogant confidence to absolute horror, make sure you hit that like button if you're ready to see Judge Judy absolutely annihilate an entitled parent who thought she could commit insurance fraud and get away with it. Subscribe right now, because what happens when Judge Judy reveals what's really on that parking lot security camera will restore your faith in justice and prove that karma is not only real, but it has perfect timing. Trust me, the 67 seconds of Karen's complete mental breakdown that you're about to witness will be the most satisfying thing you see all week. Now let me take you inside this courtroom and show you exactly how this whole situation exploded. Karen Morrison was a 42-year-old soccer mom who had spent the last 6 years as president of the Riverside Elementary PTA, driving her white Cadillac Escalade with blessed vanity plates and treating every parent meeting like her personal kingdom. She lived in an $850,000 home in the gated community of Willow Creek Estates, married to a successful orthodontist, and she had built her entire identity around being the most important parent at every school function. Karen was the type of woman who kept detailed files on families she considered beneath her standards, who had driven 4 families to switch schools through systematic harassment, and who weaponized her PTA position against anyone who dared challenge her authority. She wore her Lululemon athleisure like a uniform of suburban superiority, and her perfectly highlighted blonde hair and fresh manicure sent a clear message that she was better than everyone else. But Karen's real power came from her complete lack of empathy masked behind a performance of Christian values and charity work. She volunteered at her local church not out of genuine compassion, but because it gave her access to gossip and control over other families. She ran the volunteer coordinator position like a feudal lord, deciding which families deserved help and which families needed to be punished for not meeting her standards. Her 3 children played competitive travel sports, and Karen treated every game, every practice, every team event as an opportunity to establish her dominance over other parents. She was known for excluding families who didn't drive the right cars, who didn't live in the right neighborhoods, who didn't have the right jobs or the right clothes or the right social media presence. Sarah Chun was everything Karen despised. At 34 years old, Sarah was a widowed single mother who had lost her husband in a construction accident 18 months earlier. She worked 2 jobs, pulling day shifts as a nurse and weekend shifts as a restaurant server, just to afford the small rental apartment on the edge of the school district boundary. Sarah drove a 2008 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it, and every single dollar she earned went toward giving her 8-year-old daughter Emma a chance at a normal childhood. When Emma made the competitive soccer team, beating out Karen's youngest daughter in the tryouts, Sarah saw it as a miracle. Her little girl, who had been through so much grief and trauma, finally had something to be excited about. But for Karen, it was a declaration of war. The travel soccer team fees were $2,400, and Sarah simply didn't have that kind of money sitting in her bank account. At the team parent meeting, she quietly asked the coach if there was a payment plan option, hoping to handle it discreetly. But Karen overheard, and she saw her opportunity. In front of 15 other parents, Karen loudly announced that maybe Emma should try rec league if Sarah couldn't afford real soccer, that competitive sports were for families who could make the proper commitment, and that it wasn't fair to the other girls to have teammates whose parents couldn't even afford the basic fees. The humiliation was deliberate and cruel, designed to establish that Sarah and Emma didn't belong in Karen's world. What happened 3 days later in the Riverside Elementary parking lot would become the incident that brought both women into Judge Judy's courtroom. But the truth of what actually occurred that afternoon was very different from the story Karen would tell. It was a typical Thursday after soccer practice, and the parking lot was crowded with parents picking up their kids. Karen had parked her massive Cadillac Escalade diagonally across 2 parking spots near the entrance, the way she always did, because in her mind the rules about parking didn't apply to someone of her status. Sarah arrived late after finishing her nursing shift at the hospital, desperately trying to pick up Emma before the coach left. The parking lot was nearly full, and the only available space was next to Karen's poorly parked SUV. Sarah carefully maneuvered her old Honda Civic into the tight space, trying to avoid the Escalade that was taking up far more room than it should. As she slowly backed in, her rear bumper made contact with Karen's rear bumper. It was barely a tap, the kind of minor contact that happens in crowded parking lots every single day, at maybe 2 miles per hour. Sarah immediately stopped, put her car in park, and got out to inspect both vehicles. She walked around carefully, bending down to look closely at both bumpers. There was no visible damage, no scratch, no dent, nothing. The rubber bumpers had simply touched and separated. Sarah was still checking when Karen emerged from the building with her daughter, designer sunglasses perched on her head and her phone in her hand. Sarah immediately approached her, apologizing profusely even though there was no damage. "I am so sorry. I barely tapped your bumper while parking. I checked, and I don't see any damage, but please take a look yourself." Karen walked over, glanced at her bumper for maybe 3 seconds, and waved Sarah off dismissively. "It's fine," she said with a smile. "Don't worry about it. These things happen in parking lots." Both women actually smiled at each other. Karen didn't take any photos, didn't write down any information, didn't express any concern whatsoever. She simply got into her Escalade and drove away normally, without even a second glance at her bumper. Sarah felt relieved, got Emma from practice, and drove home thinking the minor incident was completely resolved. She had no idea that Karen had just begun planning the scheme that would nearly destroy her life. 2 weeks later, Sarah received a letter from her insurance company informing her that a claim had been filed against her policy. Karen Morrison was claiming $4,500 in damages from the parking lot incident. Sarah's hands shook as she read the details of the claim. Karen was alleging that Sarah had hit her vehicle at high speed, causing significant damage to her rear bumper that required a complete replacement, new paint work, and a rental car during repairs. But the claim got worse. Karen was also claiming personal injury, stating that the impact had given her whiplash and soft tissue damage that required ongoing chiropractic treatment. The claim included witness statements from 3 other soccer moms who swore they had seen Sarah driving aggressively and causing significant impact to Karen's vehicle. Sarah was absolutely devastated. She knew the tap had been minor, she knew there had been no damage, and she definitely knew that Karen had smiled and said it was fine before driving away without concern. But Karen had money, lawyers, and witnesses backing up her story. Sarah was a struggling widow with no resources to fight back. Within days, her insurance company paid out Karen's claim in full, and Sarah's insurance rate skyrocketed by $340 per month. For someone already working 2 jobs and barely making ends meet, this increase was catastrophic. She couldn't afford her car insurance anymore, but she couldn't afford not to have insurance either. She needed her car to get to work, to get Emma to school, to survive. But Karen wasn't satisfied with just destroying Sarah financially. She went on Facebook and posted a victory message that would later become evidence of her fraud. The post included a selfie of Karen holding the insurance check, with a caption that read, "Victory. Just got paid for teaching someone a valuable lesson about respecting other people's property. Don't mess with Mama Bear. When you hit my car, you pay the price. 4,500 reasons why you shouldn't mess with me." The post included hashtags like winning and karma is real and mom boss and don't mess with me. Karen was literally bragging about extracting money from a struggling widow, celebrating it like she had won some kind of competition. The consequences for Sarah spiraled even further out of control. Karen spread rumors throughout the school community that Sarah was a hit-and-run driver who couldn't be trusted. Other soccer moms began excluding Emma from team activities and carpools. Sarah's restaurant manager heard the rumors and, concerned about having someone with character issues representing the establishment, let her go from her weekend waitressing job. Now Sarah was working 3 different part-time jobs just to cover the increased insurance costs, and Emma kept asking why Mrs. Morrison hated them and why the other girls wouldn't talk to her anymore. Sarah Chun reached her breaking point on a Tuesday night when she was choosing between buying Emma's school supplies or paying the electric bill. She sat at her tiny kitchen table, staring at the insurance bill that had destroyed her carefully managed budget, and she made a decision that terrified her. She couldn't afford a lawyer, but she could file a small claims lawsuit. She was going to fight back. Sarah spent every spare moment over the next 2 weeks preparing her case. She gathered every document she could find. The insurance claim paperwork, the letters from Karen's attorney, screenshots of Karen's bragging Facebook post, receipts showing her lost wages from the waitressing job, and documentation of her skyrocketing insurance costs. She was suing for $8,000 lost wages, increased insurance premiums, and emotional distress. But most importantly, she was requesting that Karen be ordered to return the fraudulent insurance payout. Sarah had one crucial piece of information that gave her hope. She remembered that the Riverside Elementary parking lot had security cameras. She had seen them mounted on the light posts. She didn't know if the footage still existed after several weeks, and she didn't know if she could get access to it. But she knew that if Judge Judy could see what actually happened that day, the truth would be undeniable. When Sarah's case was selected for Judge Judy's show, she broke down crying with relief. This was her chance, not just for justice, but for her daughter to see that bullies don't always win, that truth matters, and that standing up for yourself is worth the fight even when you're terrified. Karen Morrison's reaction to being summoned to Judge Judy's courtroom was completely different. She was excited. She saw this as an opportunity for even more public validation of her victory over someone she considered beneath her. Karen spent 3 weeks preparing what she believed was an airtight case. She printed legal articles from random internet websites about parking lot liability and insurance claim procedures. She rehearsed her testimony in front of her bathroom mirror, practicing her expressions of wounded innocence and righteous indignation. She carefully selected her courtroom outfit, a designer business suit with a pearl necklace that screamed respectability and success. She even coordinated with her 3 soccer mom friends who had provided the false witness statements, making sure their stories were perfectly aligned. The morning of the taping, Karen posted an Instagram story showing herself getting ready, with text that read heading to Judge Judy to teach someone a lesson about accountability, followed by a flexing arm emoji and hashtags like Mom Life and Justice Warrior. Outside the courthouse, she gathered with her entourage of supporting friends and actually laughed about how easy this was going to be. That woman has no idea who she's dealing with, Karen told them confidently. I have witnesses, I have documentation, I have everything. This is going to be so easy. I'm going to make her cry on national television. Her friends nodded and encouraged her, feeding into her delusion that she was the victim in this situation, that she was teaching an important lesson about accountability and responsibility. When Karen strutted into Judge Judy's courtroom, she carried herself like a woman who had already won. She didn't even glance at Sarah as she passed her. She winked at the camera. She whispered to the bailiff, asking if Judge Judy was always this short in person, as if the judge's physical stature somehow diminished her authority. Karen maintained her smug smile throughout all the preliminaries, sitting confidently at the defendant's table with her thick folder of printed internet articles and her perfectly rehearsed lies. She had no idea that Judge Judy had already obtained the parking lot security footage. She had no idea that her Facebook bragging post had been submitted as evidence. She had no idea that she was about to experience the most humiliating moment of her entire life in front of millions of viewers. Judge Judy opened the proceedings with her signature no-nonsense approach, reviewing the basic facts of the case. Sarah Chun was suing Karen Morrison for $8,000, claiming that Karen had filed a fraudulent insurance claim after a minor parking lot contact and had systematically destroyed Sarah's life through rumors and harassment. Sarah took the stand first, and her testimony was quiet but determined. Her voice shook with emotion as she described losing her husband, working 2 jobs to give Emma a normal childhood, and the joy she felt when her daughter made the competitive soccer team. She explained the parking lot incident in careful detail, how she had barely tapped Karen's bumper at parking lot speed, maybe 2 miles per hour, how she had immediately stopped and inspected both vehicles, and how she had found no damage whatsoever. Sarah's voice broke as she described what happened next. Mrs. Morrison came out and I apologized right away, even though there was no damage. I was so worried I had hurt her car. But she looked at it, smiled at me, and said it's fine, don't worry about it, these things happen. She waved me off and drove away like nothing happened. 2 weeks later, I got a letter saying she was claiming $4,500 in damages and personal injury. My insurance rates went up $340 a month. I lost my weekend job because of the rumors she spread. My daughter asks me why the other girls won't talk to her anymore. I can barely afford groceries some weeks because of what she did. If you believe Sarah deserves justice and Karen deserves to be exposed for insurance fraud, smash that like button right now. Comment justice served if you think Judge Judy is about to destroy this entitled soccer mom's lies. Hit subscribe because what happens when that security footage plays will be the most satisfying moment you see all year. The next section is going to show you Karen's complete meltdown, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. Judge Judy listened to Sarah's testimony with focused intensity, her eyes moving between Sarah's tearful face and Karen's dismissive expression. When Sarah finished, Judge Judy asked pointed questions about the actual contact. How fast were you going, Mrs. Chun? Sarah wiped her eyes and answered honestly. Parking lot speed, Your Honor. Maybe walking pace, 2 miles per hour at most. Did you hear a crash? See any damage? No, ma'am, nothing at all. I checked very carefully because I was terrified I had damaged her expensive car. What exactly did Mrs. Morrison say to you at that moment? Sarah's voice steadied as she recalled the interaction. She said it's fine, don't worry about it. These things happen in parking lots. She smiled at me and walked away. She didn't take pictures, didn't write anything down, didn't seem concerned at all. Judge Judy's attention shifted to Karen Morrison, who sat at the defendant's table radiating confidence and contempt. Karen didn't wait for permission to speak. She interrupted before Judge Judy could even finish her next question. Your Honor, this is very simple. This woman destroyed my vehicle and tried to flee the scene. Karen pulled out her folder with theatrical flourish, displaying printed photographs of a damaged bumper. The damage was significant, clearly far more than what a 2-mile-per-hour tap could cause. I have 3 children who depend on that vehicle for their safety, Karen continued, her voice dripping with self-righteousness. She hit my car at least 20 miles per hour. The impact gave me whiplash. I was in pain for weeks. Karen pulled out her witness statements, waving them like proof of her victimhood. I have 3 witnesses who saw the entire thing. They watched her drive aggressively and cause significant damage. She was hostile and tried to leave before I could get her information. Judge Judy leaned forward with that expression regular viewers recognized as the calm before a devastating storm. Mrs. Morrison, if she fled the scene, how did you file an insurance claim against her? Karen fumbled slightly. Well, I got her license plate number. So she fled slowly enough for you to write down her plate? Karen's confidence flickered. Yes, I mean it happened fast, but I'm very observant. Judge Judy picked up a document from her desk. This repair receipt you submitted. It's dated 3 weeks before the incident occurred. Karen's face flushed red. That must be wrong, a different repair. I have so many. Judge Judy wasn't finished dismantling Karen's lies. She read the 3 witness statements aloud, noting that all 3 used identical language describing violent impact and aggressive driving behavior. Did your witnesses rehearse their statements together, Mrs. Morrison? Karen shifted uncomfortably. We discussed what we saw, but you told me earlier you were alone getting groceries from your car. How were three witnesses suddenly present? Karen stammered through contradictory explanations, while Judge Judy watched her story collapse. Then came the question that would seal Karen's fate. Mrs. Morrison, you're aware the parking lot has security cameras? Karen smiled confidently. Yes, and I can't wait for you to see the footage. Judge Judy signaled to her assistant, and a large monitor wheeled into the courtroom. The security footage began playing. Within seconds, Karen's confident smile evaporated. The video showed Sarah's gentle tap, her immediate inspection, and most damning of all, Karen waving her off with a smile saying it's fine. Karen's face transformed through confusion, panic, and horror as her lies were exposed in real time. She began sobbing uncontrollably, mascara running down her face. Judge Judy's verdict was swift. $19,780 to Sarah Chun, plus criminal referral for insurance fraud. If this justice-served moment restored your faith in accountability, smash that like button and subscribe for more courtroom takedowns. Common security cameras never lie. If you believe Karen got exactly what she deserved, share this with every parent who needs to see that bullies and fraudsters eventually face consequences.